Okay, hi everyone. So welcome to our webinar titled The Subtle Arts of Designing Dashboards. This event is brought to you by Design Only Things. Design Only Things is the name of the community that brought about this webinar. So for the first 15 minutes, I'm going to give you the introduction of what is the Design Only Things is all about before we go into this session by 1:15. So I'll start sharing my screen now. If you have any question, you can check the chats on how to ask your questions and follow us on our social media platform to get updates. So watch out for the chat section and I'll start presenting now so we know what Design Only Things is all about before we go right into the webinar session. So I'll start sharing my screen now. Okay. All right, so welcome once again. This is a session titled The Subtle Art of Designing Dashboards and brought to you, as I've said, by Design Only Things. So I just want to brush us to what Design Only Things is all about and how you can engage us and how we are open to helping you get better in your design journey. So who are we? We are designers passionate about imparting the design world with the right knowledge and resources to help new and existing designers. And we are not limited to just providing helpful resources. We organize design-focused webinars and bootcamp in collaboration with top designers. So what we do basically is that we are designers as well. Some of us with experiences, real life experiences, and when we are going to become who we are, as you all know, we are not where we are yet, but we are on our way. But while we were doing that, we realized that some of the issues that designers want to is when they don't have the right resources at their disposal, or they have nobody that will help them through the process of getting into the field or progressing or keeping in touch or making sure that they're in line with trends, which keep them afloat of their design. So what we do generally is that we bring the right knowledge and resources to you to help you in your journey. We organize webinars. We have our social media that give tips every day on how to design better, and we have bootcamps in collaboration with top designers to help you in your design journey. And how can we help? We have our resource bank. We have 300 plus carefully curated design resources that will help you design better. So we have resource bank. If you want to get icons, illustrations, how to get fonts, how to get colors, anything that has to do with design, we have already created design resources for you, which I'll be showing you to the link now so that you can have access to them. And it will help you design better, of course. When you have access to the information and the design resources, you don't have to start looking for where to download fonts again. We have it all in one place and you can click the link to download. And we also share design tips on our social media platform every day. Every day we share design tips on our social media platforms. And then we also organize design-focused webinars and bootcamp from time to time to keep up with design trends and learning. So we have a new design trends and we think that people should know about it, or we think that in this design, with your suggestion, of course, with the design trends going on, people should know more about this so that they can design better. We'll be bootcamp and webinars to help you with it as well. So I'll just go through elaborating more on each one of them and how we can help you. We have our online resource bank that I've said. We have a Notion file where we have 300 plus carefully curated design resources. This is not something we just go on Google and copy out for people. Okay, let's just copy it out. No, there are resources that we've used before and we gathered it together to help you, and you can go through them. The Notion file is bit.ly/design only things. That is where you can have access to it. And then our social media posts, we share daily design tips on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn every time to to help you in your design journey as well. And also we have design focused webinars. We have webinars, we organize free webinars from time to time to keep designers on trends in the industry. You can follow us on Eventbrite by typing design only things, and you get notification anytime we organize any webinars for designers. And also we organize boot camps. We organize both free and paid boot camps. Free in the sense that we are bringing information to you and you don't have to pay at all for it. And we have paid boot camps too that will help you, and you help us as well, to keep the energy going for upcoming and existing designers who are interested in expanding their knowledge base. Our goals and objectives. So I believe every organization should have goals and objectives that they run with, so that we don't just be doing things as it comes. So our first one is to build world-class designers. I know everybody's already fed up with the idea of mediocrity. Everybody's medium, shall know it kind of thing. But in this community, design only things, we are more focused on building world-class designers, people that will scale, that will go outside there and make name for themselves. And with all our resources, our webinars, our bootcamps, our social media tips, if you take your time to go through them, is on our way to build world-class designers as well. And then also to increase design awareness. I mean, one or two designers will have experience of when you want to do your design research, let's say research, or you want to do any form of thing that is design inclined in your tech industry, and then they don't find the relevance, they be like, it's not important or something. Our goal is also to increase design awareness so that people get to know that this design is very, very important when you are building products. It should not be sidelined, and we'll help you to prove it to them. So when we give you tips, design research tips, and all other things that will bring results, measurable results, bring metrics from it, to be able to, okay, when I designed this button, I was able to drive 20% more customer into our product. So that's like design awareness. When they know that, they want to invest more into the design aspect of the product, and this is also one of our goals. Okay, then so far we have, as I've said, we have 300 plus curated design resources for you, and then we have 200 plus social media followers. We want it to be more than this, so we want you to follow us and keep putting more resources as much as possible on our platform. And how to help us grow, we have 3 ways you can help us grow, but it's not just limited to 3. Any way you think you can help us grow, through sponsorship or anything, you have an idea and you want us to work with it to help other designers, we are open to it. The first one is follow us on our social media. You like, comment on our social media posts. You follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. It's the same name, Design Only Things. And then the number 2 is you visit our resource bank. We have our resource bank on www.bits.ly/design-only-things, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Design Only Things. And then the last one is can donate, can buy us a cup of coffee. I mean, they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but for designers, a cup of coffee keeps design block away. So can buy us a cup of coffee by using this link here. This slide will be shared with us immediately after the session, and you can click on you can go on our design resource bank, and you'll be able to see the link to donating into Design Only Things. And this is the last one. Stay in touch with us. You want inquiries on how to support us to bring more webinars and bootcamps to people, you can send us email on designonlythings@gmail.com. You can visit our website, and you have a button there to send us message or drop a feedback for us, www.bits.ly/designonlythings, and you can follow us on Instagram at design.onlythings. Not just on Instagram, you can follow us on our LinkedIn, and you can follow us on you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like our post on comment on our post on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter by the name Design Only Things. So, and the last one is thank you so much for listening to this presentation. As I've said earlier, watch out for the chat box for information that you need. If you have any question, you use Slido, and the code to ask your question is on the chat. You can check the chat if you have any question whatsoever outside on the section that we're about to go into, or outside anything that has to do with design, can ask your question. Don't forget to check out our social media handles, Design Only Things, on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Thank you so much. So now I will hand over the mic to our guest, Namso, to take us on the session, the subtle arts of designing dashboard. Namso, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. That was really great. Got to learn so much about the community and great work so far. I'll be sharing my screen now. Also, I'll very much like to make this session as interactive as possible. So if at any point in time there's a question or you want to find out something, just indicate and just let me know, and I will. So yeah, because I don't want to just be the only one speaking. I want to also get feedback, so I can also, so there can be some exchange of vibes and energy. All right, so the subtle art of designing dashboards. This is one very interesting topic. I think I like the topic from the moment and Juliana told me about it, because dashboards is something that has been interpreted in so many ways. And in all of that, there's still a way of doing it. So people using the dashboard, the company that owns the dashboard, whoever designed the dashboard, can get the most out of it. Before we get started, I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Namnso Ukpanah. I work at Flutterwave as a product design lead. That simply means I'm responsible for the Flutterwave for business dashboard. So whenever you go to flutterwave.com and you sign up, from the moment you click on sign up, that's my product right there. That's responsible for that. Myself and my team, we are the ones responsible for making updates on that, maintaining it, and constantly updating that. Like in as much as we own the product, we also assume ownership of specific parts of the product. I happen to be the one leading. I happen to be the one in charge of everything to do with onboarding, signups, and compliance, which is a big deal in fintech. And I'm also directly responsible for everything to do with whatever action a user has to carry out on the dashboard that moves money out of their Flutterwave account into a bank account or a mobile wallet somewhere. I also run a startup called Kimoyo Insight. There's Kimoyo Fellowship and there's Kimoyo Insight. And Kimoyo Insight is more like a marketplace for recruiting and user testers. They can get insights or feedback from on whatever product or whatever research that you're conducting. And currently, we are in 5 countries across Africa: Nigeria, Ghana, Rwanda, South Africa, and Kenya. And we've also worked with some clients that you know about. You can visit our website at kimoyoinsights.com. Previously, this is not really news yet because it hasn't really been announced. But previously, I worked as the regional coordinator for Friends of Figma Africa, which is what was formerly known as Figma Africa. I'm kind of no longer doing that right now. One thing that really gets me excited is design systems. And for fun, I play video games. I play a lot of video games. You can find me on any social media platform using my first and my last name, Namnso Ukpanah. Moving on to the next slide. So this is a very familiar image. As designers, this is something that we see a lot: dribble, forcing the other one. But yeah, we see this a lot everywhere. It's basically when you are starting to learn design, this is what you probably see. And then it goes on. There are different forms, different types, depending on what that person is going for. There are various types, and different colors as well, dark themes, white themes. There are different types of dashboards that exist out there, and this is what we'll mostly be talking about in this session. So, a quick introduction of dashboards. Funny enough, I had to look really hard to come up with this. I had to look really hard before seeing this explanation of dashboards. We all know what they are. We know how they operate. We know what it's being used for. But at no point while we are learning design do we get to define what a dashboard is. We've defined design systems and all of that. But and I like that this explanation still narrows it down to what dashboard was initially intended to be for. So a dashboard is a type of graphic interface that displays important KPI information at a glance. That puts it subtly and in a very straightforward manner. Now, previously, before UI design and all of that, dashboards, sorry, I don't know if the server can mute so everyone's not saying who's joining the meetings at some point. All right, let me see if I can hide this. Okay, all right, hopefully that solves that. So previously, before web design, UI design, dashboards used to be what you mostly see maybe in cars or it's back. Okay, I have no control over that. Dashboards used to be something that you see in cars, you see it in ships, on boats, with lots of buttons and lots of buttons, lots of knobs, and they all have like specific functions. I don't know if you guys have ever seen picture of a cockpit of a plane with all of the buttons, lots of meters everywhere. And you're wondering, how do these guys fly this and know exactly which button to push at a particular point in time? So that's what dashboard used to be. And then when web design, came to be and we started creating designs for people to control various systems, and then when that came to be, we just translated that whole approach of knobs, buttons, meters, and all of that, into web. So the earliest dashboards that were in existence were usually lots of designs that closely resembled the physical type of dashboards, but that has changed a lot recently. And moving on, what we're focusing on today is not really about dashboards per se, because I'm of the assumption that everybody here is a designer. Instead, I want to really focus on what makes a good dashboard, because the subtle art of designing dashboards really comes down to knowing which one is a good dashboard and how to create one, or to pay attention to, and everything else. So there are a few points that I want to run through, starting with navigation, creative elements, micro interactions, error management. That's a really big part of designing dashboards. Predictability of actions and engineering constraints. All of this wouldn't make sense if we didn't factor in the engineers that are going to create this and that also maintain these dashboards along with us. So the first one is great navigation. And one way to understand navigation with dashboards is that when you are able to optimize the available real estate while designing dashboards, such that people are able to look at the dashboard and know exactly what it's supposed to be for, no matter the page that they are on, or no matter what's supposed to be displayed, they're able to look at it from a glance and quickly soak in all of that information right there. Then you've already gotten really far. We're getting people to complete whatever activities you need them to complete using that particular dashboard. This is an image I got from Dribble, but it kind of paints the picture of what we mostly refer to as clean UI. So knowing how much space exists, knowing the size of, knowing how much content or elements you want to fit in within a single viewport. A viewport is the information that's displayed on the screen at a particular point in time before the user scrolls. So each time they scroll, that extends the viewport. But yeah, knowing and the information, the content, all of the elements that could fit in on a particular viewport, that's like the very beginning. The next one is knowing, people knowing where they are at every point in time. This is no different from a physical journey. So say you are going to the store, if you know where you are at every point in time, you know what you're supposed to do next and where you're supposed to go back to. So kind of gives people a physical sense of, okay, direction. And one way that this really happens and that really helps with this, which is still navigation, is breadcrumbs. So um, now, dashboards, there's usually a structure in terms of how the pages are arranged. So it's just something like um, landing page. Now, maybe it's time we get to the internal page, and then right there you see the dashboard, or like or some people just refer to it as is it or just dashboards. Now, in all of that, sometimes it could be maybe like the empty set if there is no information in there. But when you skip that, you get to what is called the listing page. And from listing page, you now get to the details page. After the details page, share like some type of action page or can be reduced to a model. But yeah, there's some form of hierarchy in which dashboard pages are arranged. And as designers, you kind of know what to expect, when you're on a particular page. Take for instance, say you're on your Twitter feed, and maybe you click on a tweet that takes you to the details page, right? Any other action probably takes you to some type of action page. Maybe you've liked something, or you've deleted something, or you've saved something to, that's the action page. Before you go to that tweet page or the details page, you probably came from a listing page, and say your timeline serves as a listing page. So I don't know if I'm making sense. But yeah, that's mostly that structure, and breadcrumbs kind of lets people know exactly where they are at every point in time. And it also helps greatly in what I mentioned earlier about the predictability of actions, which we'll discuss more on that later on. All right, moving on. The next one is, still on navigation, is paginations. So letting people know how many more pages they have to go through, and just by the information displayed on the page, you can say maybe 30, currently displaying maybe 30 items on this page, and then the pagination says something like 32 pages. That lets me know that there's a lot of pages to go through. But then there's also there's also an art using pagination, depending on how that particular dashboard is being designed and the information displayed and the information that's on that particular page. All right. I don't know if there's any questions so far, but yeah, just let me know. Now moving on to the next one, which is cohesive elements. This this drills down to having some type of system to make it easier for the designer design the dashboard to be able to go through it. Makes it easier for the engineers that's going to implement that particular design to know how it's going to work. Makes it even easier for the user to know what to expect. I mean, some time ago, there was a lot of tweets going around that Twitter changed their font, right? How do we know that? They probably updated their system, and then that reflected on our end, and we're able to tell. And there was, some type of where that font change affected us, either the way we're using the way we're using Twitter, or the way it was working for us, the way it maybe allowed us to take in information. It probably also influenced the way the content or number of text was being displayed. Yeah, those are all of the things that comes with having a system. So take for instance the image on the left, which is before having a system, and the after of having a system. You discover that you can fit in so much. There's some type of hierarchy. There is a method to the arrangement. There is also a way of knowing which element belongs where and how this is going to work. And that's the system for you. So this is a very familiar image as well. If you're a designer, you've probably come across this at some point, like either via Dribble or Behance. Yeah, Behance, that's what I was trying to mention earlier on Behance, or Twitter, or you've probably created one yourself, right? And it's what a design system kind of looks like. But what a design system also talks about, which is going to make you creating a great dashboard experience, is knowing the way these elements are to be used. So having a design system is the first step, probably a very good first step. But the next step is knowing how to use one, especially an existing one. So for instance, what happens when you want to create a type of model that doesn't exist? And then you have to maybe try to follow the same layout and arrangement, or even content structure of an existing model in the design system. You now discover it's still not working, right? How do you make that work for you? So as much as there is having a design system, at some point you probably have to create maybe a new page or make an update to an existing dashboard that will require like some new elements, and you probably need to figure out how to use that. So if you are currently working with a design system that doesn't really have anything like this to help with that consistency, then this needs to be added as soon as possible. Could just be a documentation or some simple wireframe, so some simple diagrams that kind of lets people know this. See, the image on the left, header, sentence case, then buttons, title case, right? Things like this might seem really minimal, but when someone is clicking through several buttons at a time, maybe trying to complete, I'll use payments for instance, because that's my industry. So say someone is trying to complete a payment and they're trying to maybe settle, so say go through checkout, and that's maybe click, enter their names, then click next, enter their card information, and they're clicking on different buttons. Maybe the first one, sentence case, second button, title case, the other one, the text is in bold. That kind of creates some type of inconsistency that makes people wonder if they're making the right choice or am I really doing the right thing? Then the image on the right, you can see header, body, how it's being arranged. They even tell you how to label your buttons. So button 2 should mirror leading verb from the header. Invite users, invite, right? Invite users, then this didn't say send or submit or any other verb that doesn't really tie back to the header. And then the body as well, there's some type of explanation. All of this leads to that consistency. So dashboards usually rely heavily on systems or some type of guidelines to create that cohesion, which is a huge part of designing good dashboards. The next one is baseline grades. So a baseline grade is one that's established from the baselines your typography sits on. Now, when you are writing text, so when you are typing, there is some invisible line that you notice all text tend to rest on. Now, this can be adjusted using line height, but then when you are writing, say in sentence cases, and then maybe the capital letters, they tend to appear on a certain line. Now, these are things that you probably need to take into consideration if you are still trying to achieve that consistency or that correlation between your element. Now, that also spills into your grid baseline that you are using. So say there's like a baseline of 8 or 10, and the way your elements are placed at every point in time along that grid also greatly influences the way the elements are seen as a whole. And this clearly illustrates that. So you can see, for instance, there is no clear vertical rhythm here in how the elements are placed. The spacing is also super inconsistent. So if you take away these numbers, on the left-hand side, 24, 20, 34, 34, yeah, it might seem like there's some type of order, or it might seem like it works, but then notice how using a baseline grid, so the 8-point spatial system, and everything is made divisible by 8. Notice how this particular spacing looks really neat compared to the other one on the left, which looks okay. So this still allows one to have that consistency. So say for instance, by the time you're able to divide your buttons or text fields, the spacing between your elements, how all of this is arranged, you see how it greatly shapes up your design in a way that just feels awesome. I'm not really sure if that fully explains it, but once you start trying it, you realize what you've been missing or how much you've been struggling before you discovered all of this. Moving on, now the next point is micro interactions. This is a big part, but oftentimes we tend to overlook it because, I mean, as designers, before you pick up a project, you're already maybe like 2 weeks late on the project, and then they're telling you, oh, we need this out by tomorrow. So you just do the bare minimum, which is giving them a design. Um, Maybe the prototype is probably rushed through. By rushed through, I mean you skipped out all of the fancy interactions, animations that you probably would have done, which at that point probably seems not so relevant to what you want to achieve, or all of the um, nice parts of, that kind of makes you excited about that design. The macro interactions like this could be over effects and loading effects. One that I've really been noticing lately is buttons. So when I click on a button, what happens between when I click on that button and when the action that button is supposed to carry out happens. So say before I go to click on the button, there's like a slide over. I click on the button, when you are designing your design system, you probably have like a pressed state for your button. So when I press that button, I notice how the color changes from the over effect. Then between when I've pressed and when the action is supposed to happen, I always watch out if there's like a slight transition or like a slight loading state. Some people embed the loader within the button, or when you click the button, changes like a loader, that just kind of loads. Dashboards oftentimes can be really heavy depending on the information that that's on it, or where it's pulling this information from. So oftentimes knowing when, okay, it's supposed to load, right? Do I start a blank screen, or do I make the loading happen on the button on that same page and then just display the other one when it's being pulled from whatever database that is pulling from? Just understanding all of this makes you know the type of micro interactions that you want to include in whatever you are building. This also translates from buttons alone to maybe when someone is scrolling through a table, when they're moving from one row to the other, what happens, if there is some type of hidden buttons, or you want to display some quick tips that you really don't want them to miss out on, as they're scrolling, how do you display that? That's when you really start to pay attention to things like where do I want the tooltip to come out from, right? Should it come from the top? Should it come from the bottom, right? Or if you're using tooltips, right, how do you want this to be displayed? Or how do I make sure that whatever message I want to convey to the user fits within maybe a particular uh, um, number of words, right? So maybe 5 words at most. And you have to probably figure out what to say in 5 words that clearly summarize what you want to tell the user or what you want to inform the user about. All of this oftentimes is overlooked, but trust me, it really builds up to the general expectation or the general experience of that particular product. Like even the success, or the success states, or like when the user has carried out an action and then the toast comes out, all of that, the way it's being displayed, by the time you're able to start including this, and that's when you really start understanding or that's where you also fully know how to explain it to the engineers, that how it's supposed to work. So you know when it's not working the way it's supposed to. And using a particular method of animation, kind of using a particular type of animation still sets that consistency for your users. By the same time, it also lets them know what to expect at some point. Um, so moving on, this is another one of it where watch the drop down arrow, you know, click, the turns. Figma kind of Figma does this with Smart Animate. So if you explore it some more, you could do like some really cool stuff with it that still builds up to your experience, or just start paying more attention to what your favorite platform is using, how they are, animating or adding these tiny tweaks that make the experience awesome. So let's do some more. So like this could be icon, could be some quick illustration that just kind of displays properly. But yeah. The next point is error management. This is other part of designing dashboard experiences that is often overlooked. With dashboards, there will always be error at some point. So say someone is trying to filter a particular data table, and maybe whatever they're searching for is not there. How do you let them know that? How do you explain all of this to them? Under error messages, there are several ways of identifying error messages or managing errors that occur right from the design phase. So that could be working out clear error messages, or writing your error messages for humans, knowing that it's not machines that is going to be reading it, or that will be machines certainly won't be the ones making complaints on Twitter to your customer support or on your Twitter pages. Error message localization. This is very particular to people that work on products or that design dashboard that is being used in various locations. And we'll explain all of this. And then the last one is error resolution. So in all of these 4 points, the biggest part of this is that over communication is key in creating the right type of error messages. So take, for instance, clear error messages: the operation completed successfully. Then why is the icon saying otherwise, right? And what is the okay for? And then why is the header saying error, right? Then you now see the one on the left. Doesn't really explain much because it's a toaster. So it's a toast, but it does speak in a is more like written in English. I mean, it's written in clear, simple words that can be easily understood. And then the icons, the colors, they all both interpret what the title and the paragraph text is trying to say. So error messages should explain the problem to the user in plain, simple ways that convey intended goal. That means no technical jargons. The next one is writing error messages for humans, right? So try to simplify it as much as possible. People already know what to expect. Without reading the text on this, you could tell that the first toast on the left, is a success message, right? The second one is probably something to do with information and so on. And then you now look at the images on the right. So the image on the right, and you could tell congratulations. So people already come to associate some of these colors that they see on systems with the error messages that's supposed to convey. All they just need to know to all work it out is how the actual message itself is being written. So writing that, and also trying to explain it like you are explaining to them and not explaining for the system or their phones or any of that. The third one is error message localization, right? So say you are you work in a team that designs experiences for people in various countries. Now, that there are some ways you can localize your error messages that people will really understand. Just look at the 3 images below. We can tell what's going on. I mean, everybody knows Trevor Noah, and then there is Popo, and then there is Sabinos. You already know what he's trying to say without saying anything. And that's the same way you should look at your error messages. People should be able to look at this and understand. Generic error message doesn't really help anybody. It doesn't help the company. It also doesn't help the users. So doing away with that, or going a step further to explaining that using the local context that people will understand, also takes away the all of the pressure or all of the frustration that comes with getting that error in the first place, and also lets them know what to do. The next one is error resolution. So good thing if you display the error, the user knows what's wrong. Now, how do you also help the user resolve some of these errors? So being able to offer them guidance that helps your user resolve these errors makes it easier on one customer support. It also makes them come to like that product because first there was the problem. Now they've been able to resolve that problem still without losing so much time trying to fix it or waiting for response from support team or from anybody else. So offering them that guidance could be, say someone is trying to, once again, back to the payment field. So someone is trying to complete a payment, right? And maybe they want to, they needed to enter an OTP that was sent from their bank, and then they enter that and it's not going through, it's not successful. What do you do next? Do you redirect them so that they can now authenticate that in the, on their own? So maybe using their PIN or sending them a new OTP that kind of skips the bank, just so that the transaction is still verified without them missing out on making that payment. So being able to offering ways which people can resolve some of the errors that they encounter while using your platform or your product makes it much easier for everyone involved, both the company and the users. I don't know if there's any questions so far. I really can't see everyone, but yeah, moving on. The next one is predictability of action. So people being able to predict what's going to happen next. For instance, this is an empty state. So if I click on this, or if I encounter an empty state, it means I haven't carried out any action yet. So I should be able to use this page to do a whole lot as a designer. But then for the user, for the company, this page should mostly be about maybe helping the user get started, or setting them on a path for a particular task or a particular goal. For the user, it should be about them not leaving this page still empty by the time they come back to it next time. So empty pages normally have lots of potentials because it's like a fresh start. You signed up newly, now you are here. What do you want to do with it? As a designer, how much you want to keep them engaged, and how every element on that particular page should be about converting the user to carry out an action. So next time they won't come back and still make the page empty. That's one way. But then being here, I intend to get started on something. So as a user, I want to be able to do that without whatever you have going on or however you are presenting the empty state to be disruptive to me. Same thing, still empty states, like a different type, and breadcrumbs as well. Still makes it easier for people to predict what they want to do. So I already know if I go back to the last, so the middle one, if I go back to the very first, but it's taking me back home. So I already know what that's supposed to do. Same thing with clicking any of the other pages. People already know to interpret this as page. So clicking on any of these takes me straight to that page. So being able to offer people a way of predicting some of these actions for themselves. The other one is loading states. So loading states that loads like lazy states, right? It kind of lets people know what that page is going to look like by the time it starts being populated with their data or their information. So next time or when they start using the page, or you know the arrangement, the layout, like oftentimes they really don't know until the page displays the information. They'll be like, oh yeah, this is what it was supposed to look like, right? And also know where to go to find some specific elements. So being able to make your user produce some of the actions that they are carrying out on your platform, that will also be when I carry out an action, right? I should get like a success message if my action was successful or if it went through. Same thing with, letting me know if it's failed or if it didn't go through. So maybe the more notifications or however you want to convey that message to me, but I should be able to anticipate what's going to happen. So building that into your product or the dashboard makes it much easier for the users. And finally, engineering constraints, which um, there are some use cases here which I personally encountered. Lots of edge cases as well. I'll just share a couple. Take for instance pagination, right? You the ideal pagination. Sorry, I have to go back to a couple of slides so I can really explain this. Awesome. So this is pagination right now. This works really well if maybe I'm searching for something maybe on Google or any of those pages. But then take for instance, I use maybe something like a payments platform, right? And then I've been making lots of payments, and this is also there with lots and lots of other payments. At some point, hey, Esther, you're not muted. Okay, all right. So at some point, maybe you might get pages up to say 100 pages, right? Now, say you're looking for a specific information, then you try to filter, then you try to search, and then you still don't get that. Paginations like this doesn't really work because each time maybe you click on a specific page and the system takes you to that next page, it probably has to load all of the information from the database. So each time you click on that page, it has to load all of the information from that page. So it's often easier if you just use next, previous, right, as the default pagination and skipping all of the individual pages, because next, previous, it simply loads the next page. Same thing with previous, loads the previous page that the person was on. But either way, that seems like the ideal pagination that engineers choose to use when they have to constantly load information from a database that contains lots of information as well. So that's one engineering constraint that you probably have to figure out. Another one could be, say you are designing a dashboard that at some point a user has to upload something, right? Then because this upload is dependent on maybe the file size that the user is about to upload, the system might not be able to quickly preview that item. Finding out if that's going to work for you is one of the ways to make it less frustrating for the user. So that's one of the engineering constraints. Sorry, going back. So yeah, discovering those edge cases, being able to find out some of those edge cases, knowing what works for your system or your platform, whatever stack that your engineers are using. Also knowing the way engineers are going to make a particular item work makes it easier for you to know, what you are designing or if it's going to work or not. So someone is speaking. I don't know if they can mute whoever is speaking. But yeah, and being able to understand the way whatever you're building is going to work with websites, marketing websites, landing pages, a bit different from dashboards, because dashboards is solely tailored to a particular user and needs to work that way. So knowing all of these edge cases makes it easier. Even cloud storage, or if a particular information is to be pulled from an API, how is that going to work? How is that going to populate on a particular page? How is a particular table going to respond? And depending on the information. The next one is designing for scalability, which is also designing such that as the user, maybe we mostly see this, so we mostly encounter this when we are designing maybe a models or like a mobile internal pages, and then you have to include currency. And then sometimes is, you just want to quickly put, like maybe say 1,000 naira. But then what happens if, and the person using that is a company that has lots of transactions and maybe their finances get to billions, right? How is that going to scale? Now, like take away from, like even skip the currency being up to billions, what happens if it's a currency that has lots of zeros? So take for instance, is this Zimbabwean dollar, right? Where there's a lot of zeros. So how is that going to look? Or designing buttons, knowing that if it's being translated in a particular language, it's going to maybe take a lot more space. So if you have two buttons side by side, say on mobile or in a model, how's that going to look like when it's being interpreted in a different language? Sorry, translated into a different language that probably has lots of consonants, right? The other one is lack of shared design system. So you also have to understand that engineers work with design systems, but probably not the way your own design systems are as the designer. So if it is not shared, that is, for designers, it's a bit easier updating our design system because you probably have to do it in Figma, then you push it, or if there's an integration, you kind of upload the Figma file if you're using Zero Height. But with engineers, they have to, go update the code system. When you push an update in Figma, maybe it's a component, it kind of updates. All you have to do is go through the files one after the other and make that update. For engineers, the product is already live. So if they push an update in the design system, it influences the way it looks like. So they now have to probably start fixing how it looks on various devices or on various systems. And being aware of all of this also helps you make some very informed decisions that still makes the dashboard experience for your users awesome or awesome still. And it prevents lots of what I designed versus what was implemented. So just paying attention to that makes all of the difference. I don't know if there's any question, but I'll be taking questions right now. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Namso, for that wonderful session. I really learned. Thank you. Okay, so do we have any question for Namso today? If you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can drop it in the chat. And you can drop it too.
Shaya, there's a question on YouTube.
Okay, please. Let me read it out. Okay, so can you hear me, Namso?
Yes.
Okay, so Lasisi Sadiq asks that engineering constraints management decision and user services seems like it clashes. Also does market research. These stakeholders make it hard to achieve good design. How do you undo them?
Okay. So one approach which I use on a personal level is like oftentimes the brief or whatever objective for a particular project changes from time to time. So what I mostly do is at every point in time, I'm trying to find that balance between how I want this to be implemented or whatever changes I want to make from my end. Luckily for me, I'm really close with all of my engineers, and especially the front-end guys. I'm really close with them. So they know not to make updates directly on the front end without me creating a design for it or without it passing through me, the designer. That kind of makes it easier for me to manage some of the things some of the surprises. Also, on my team, we do this thing where every project needs to be documented, right? Whatever task it is, it needs to be documented. And oftentimes, when people come up with some changes that might seem a bit too, sudden or really urgent, I always insist on, maybe like a period or some documents that kind of explains why they need to do that or what that is supposed to help them achieve. And you can tell it's really urgent if it takes them a really long time to come back to me with a period, right? Like, so say I ask for the period day and I don't get it by the end of the day. I know it's not so urgent, so can probably wait and I can still continue pushing for the original objective that we're going for. If they come back to me as soon as possible with a period day, then I know it's really urgent. But oftentimes, the business tends to win because, like the business, most of these decisions, it's already been done. So you fighting it, you're not fighting it, doesn't really affect as much. So what you can mostly do is try to find that balance for the user or try to make it um, work for the user in a way that they won't go on Twitter and start cussing you guys out. But yeah, if you guys do documentation on your team or you have like priorities for every task, always insist on that. And no matter how they try to fight it, tell them that it kind of allows what you want to add or how you want to add whatever they're requesting for. Also watch for how long it takes them to get that done, because that also lets you know how urgent it is or how important it is if it was just like someone pushing some type of power. So I don't know if that explains it, but yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope that explains it. But if you have any other question, if you have any follow-up question, you can unmute yourself if you want to explain more. Okay, so I will just move to the next question. So someone dropped here a question, said, awesome session, Namso. What are the considerations for gridding when designing a dashboard?
Okay. So for me, the first thing is usually the type of page that it is. With dashboard, there's like the real dashboard pages with lots of summaries lots of summaries. Everything is being summarized. It's like quick overview. Yeah, overview. That's what I was looking for earlier on. Overview. So there is the overview page, which kind of displays everything, in a summarized format for you to quickly browse through. And then there is maybe the listing page. So for me, the grid layout try to keep it the same so they can have that consistency. But then when you want to work out the placement of elements, it's dependent on that page. And the overview page, funny enough, um, is not as useful as the designs make it out to be, because people really look at that page. They always go to the listing page from my experience. And the listing page kind of try to filter it out, or they're looking for um, a specific information that they want to filter out and maybe really look at it or maybe export, download. So the overview page on the other end, still speaking about engineering constraints, is that sometimes it takes really long to load. So as much as you want to, as much as you are considering designing the overview page or displaying all of the information there, you have to pay attention to all of this, because the more information is going to pull or the elements on it, the more it also affects the loading time of that and could also offer the user a delayed experience. But yeah, when designing grids, I have like a standard grid for that dashboard. Oftentimes, this has already been decided by whatever system we are using. So I really have to design a grid system every time I'm designing or I'm adding a new page. It's mostly just,
It's 14 hours.
You duplicate the page, and then you just make additions to it. For new dashboard systems, there's a whole resources. So if for new dashboards, there's a whole resource on grid grids and baselines that I can share to help you figure out what works for you and also how to apply that. I'll try and include that in my slides. So when I share that, you also get to go over them. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Namso. So I'll move to the next question. The next question is I have a question. How do you undo responsiveness, mobile view, web view for tables in dashboard, especially for tables with a lot of columns?
Yeah. Okay. So this is something that I discovered earlier on in my career, to always give a fixed number of columns, a maximum number of columns for tables. That means 6. So 6, because I think we use 5 currently at Flutterwave, so we use like 5 columns, for our tables. But yeah, that means I can never have more than this number of columns. If the information to be displayed exceeds that number of columns, say 6 columns, I probably have to figure out which is more important, which information do people need to see at a glance before they now want to open a particular row to see the rest of the information. So just knowing that kind of makes it easier for me to prioritize. So usually it could be, maybe if it's payments, could be emails, first name, transaction ID or reference, date created, So just also tax as well. So if it was successful or it failed. When people are filtering, that's mostly what they are going to use to filter down to a specific row that they are looking for. So having that, now when you want to scale it to mobile, one hack I discovered earlier on is converting tables on web to cards on mobile. So that could be if I'm displaying maybe 10 items in a row, 10 rows a table, right? That will mean 10 cards, and then add a pagination, previous, next. So people scrolling through mobile don't have to start, scrolling horizontally. They just have to, keep scrolling down, and then next, if it doesn't work for them. Then in those cards, there are various ways you could display the information, which is still going by the maximum 6 columns or 5 columns. This means you could display the information in each column, on top of the other. So that could be email, you display the title and then the email, or if the information on each column is not really long, it's like really brief information, I could double it up. That also reduces the space that it consumes. So you can maybe try to fit in like 2 cards. Sorry, I hope I'm not losing wherever I ask this question, but you could now display 2 cards in a particular viewport of a mobile phone. If it's really long, if the columns are like really long, you could just stack them one after the other. So 5 or 6, depending on the total number of columns that you want to display. And then people can now tap on that to still see the details page. Same structure as that on web, but just and different dynamics. So instead of table, you now switch to cards. So that's one where I tackle responsiveness when it comes to designing tables.
Thank you so much. Okay, so this is like a follow-up for me personally about the responsiveness on table. So do you think it's actually a good practice to have table overflow? Like, when you have on the desktop, you have 6 columns, and on phone, you can only display 2 columns at a time. Then you extend it out of the page so that it's horizontally scrollable. So do you think it's a good practice?
I can't say it's a good practice or a bad practice. I just avoid this because to me, it always feels really stressful, especially if I have to fit in some really long items, and then you have to start wondering if you want to give the columns a maximum width so that some items are, are kind of extending beyond the columns, or if I just want to do it so that people have to scroll all the way to see all of the columns. I try to stay away from it. Seriously, I try to stay away from it because it always seems like one of those stuff that someone is going to swear for me. So I try to avoid it. And however, you do said, because it can be really stressful. Consider people that are using small phones, right? And there's a lot of small phones these days. Um, the typical iPhone Pro or normal iPhone doesn't, it's not that big. So imagine the screen that someone has to do. Only people that have real estate that they can fit that are all of the latest Android phones, maybe iPhone Pro Max, right? Those are phones with much bigger screens that they can maybe scroll and they won't have to scroll so much. But then remember that some people also use their phones with large phones. So that's also going to impact the experience of mobile. I basically just stay away from having that horizontal scroll.
Okay, thank you so much. Adding to what you actually said, I actually think that except you are like fixing maybe the important part of it and you can scroll under. I think Excel does that when you fix one column and then you can scroll the others under it. I feel like I have to come and check the name and go to the last to go and check maybe the age or something, and then come back to come and check the. I think it can be very frustrating, except maybe some designers have a way around it. So I will just move to the next question. So the next question is, Namso, what's your thoughts around collapsible navigation on dashboard?
Okay. I'm going to assume that this navigation is, the sidebar. Um, is the sidebar, which honestly is one of those things I also try to stay away from, because it is navigation. I want people to see where they are at every point in time. This is also the same reason why fixed navigation was invented, even on mobile websites where as people are scrolling down, the top nav still stays fixed. So I also try to stay away from that, because if we had to invent fixed navigation for normal websites, now imagine dashboards where it's collapsible and then you have to go back, click. It adds up to the clicks. But then I also understand why someone might need to do that, so people can fully take in all of the information displayed in a way that's similar to full page. So especially if the sidebar, like it's kind of big, then there's like really large spacing on the dashboard. I can understand that. But then again, the fact that we had to invent fixed navigation, fixed top navigation for websites, so people could always see wherever they are at every point in time, could easily go back, find their way around, is one thing is one concept I think you should look at when you're considering, having collapsible navigations. I'm not really sure if that also applies on mobile, but then we're already used to the hamburger menu on mobile. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is actually my question. So what do you think of tour guide on dashboards? Tour guide, when you come in, then you see like different things on the page. What do you think of it?
I think they are pretty amazing. Similar to empty states, and how there is so much potential, around empty states, and how that they can be used. I think the same thing also applies to tour guides. For instance, it doesn't matter if I use them or not, but it's something that should always be there, so that at every point in time, I know, or if I'm trying to figure stuff out, I should always be able to go back to that and maybe find my way around. Oftentimes, is a way of nicely easing people into a particular product, especially after they've had to complete like a lot of information to get onto the page. So some platforms cannot require you to log in, enter your mom's middle name, enter your BVN, enter all of that information. So it's kind of like a nice breakdown. At the same time, there is so much that can be done with it. I think it's also skip past the time of introducing chatbots to that, because you can make it really interactive, can make it really colorful. There are some tour guides that I see on some pages, and I take screenshots of them because they are really nice. One example is every time Figma pushes out a new update, they introduce some type of guide on how you can, use that. And it's always really interesting how they're able to interpret that concept using some type of brilliant illustration or animation sometimes that kind of explains what that is about. So, you see that the play of color, all of that kind of makes it interesting. And as designers, we like, aesthetics like that can be really pleasing. So, yeah, I think they're amazing.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is from Ayodele. What are the red flags as regard to typography hierarchy in designing dashboards?
Red flags could be if maybe you start designing with really large typography or start designing with really small typography, and then you now want to maybe make changes to that, it's going to cost you time, like a lot of it. But either way, finding that balance or just testing it out at first so that you can easily make adjustments to it. Our thing with typography is that if you are working on a product and you decide to change the typography, sorry, why am I saying typography? I decide to change the font, changing that font also means adjusting your, baseline grid for fonts or your line height spacing and letter spacing and all of the spacing, whatever magic you worked into the previous font that made it work. Whenever you change fonts, it's also going to affect the way your product is looking because you now have to go back and make adjustments, adjust the spacing. So think of buttons. Maybe you're using some type of auto layout and you now change the font. Suddenly there's a bit too much space than you wanted. So you probably have to go back and make all of these changes, all of these updates. Can be really stressful, but every once in a while, it's something that happens. But yeah, it's not really a red flag. It's more like some technical issues that we have to deal with every time we kind of make changes or make adjustments to font. So for instance, you wrote something that I was able to fit into say 5 lines and in that change font, suddenly there's way too much space and then the model is probably looking like really tiny or really choked up, from lack of spacing. You have to start making all of that updates. Maybe start updating your buttons as well. Some title cases, some buttons, so some fonts don't have all of the font weights. So maybe they probably skip medium and just have regular bold black. Now you have to figure out how to make all of those changes. And if you try to do all of them at a time, you kind of just mix it some. If you add medium somewhere, it's to kind of mix it with the bold weights and stuff like that. So it's just technical difficulties that you will have to deal with whenever you are making switches like that.
Thank you so much, Namso. So we have another question here.
All right.
Not really related to what we are talking about currently, but the question is, what is your advice for new designers that are hoping to become professionals? What are some do's and don'ts that have helped you in your career?
Okay. I think this advice is always going to come from the perspective of whoever is giving this advice. But one thing that I've always found useful is not skipping out on learning the foundational stuff. So think of colors. Might seem it's like something that you've already mastered, but then what happens when you want to work with more than 3 colors? Or what happens when you are trying to pair colors together? There are some colors that you've never ever considered using in your design until you see someone using, like, how did they make it work, right? One example would be the use of purple until Abeg came and they played around with it nicely, different different hues, played around with the saturation, mixed gradients with it nicely, and it's looking really good. So learning the foundational stuff. So think of typography as well, and being able to pick up on how fonts work how to pay fonts, which font is used with what, having like your preferred font style. So being able to combine them, knowing which font weight works with which button types. These are things that people interact with on a daily basis. We never really pay attention to. One example would be for those that have their videos off on this call, just looking at your name, how it's written, what type of font do you think that's it, or what's the font weight of that? Knowing all of this allows you to make some unconscious decisions that you don't know, but you just know. So you really can't explain it to people. You just, the most you can say is, I just feel like, but you don't just feel like. These are things that have been brought into your subconscious because you master some of the foundational stuff while you were learning, and somehow it stuck with you. And it's one of the things that also helps build creativity, because a lot of the complex stuff that we are trying to master right now, they are made up of lots of basic stuff. So just being able to put all of that, gain knowledge, compound it, makes you, like really creative and really good at whatever you are doing. So I'll say, and try to master the basic stuff and don't skip out on anyone, no matter how difficult it is. You might have some preferred field that you want to go into. So probably start looking into the basic stuff, because that's how every complex stuff starts. But yeah, I hope you find this useful too.
Okay, thank you so much. I do find it very useful. I should not skip any step. I mean, I feel like you're actually talking to me directly when I hear don't skip any step, because I'm always skipping the documentation step though. I will change. Okay. David Timmy was raising up his hand the other time. I don't know if you want to say something. David Timmy, are you there? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Though I wanted asking, though I've been going off and on for, so I wanted asking, will this video be live? Will it be recorded and also giving us what's it called, the download link, so that we that are willing to follow but are going off and on, we can download and watch after?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so.
Yes, it will be sent to you, the recorded version, and you can also check the YouTube link. On the chat, check the chat, and you'll be able to have access to it. You can check the YouTube, definitely save it for you. And then we are sending the recorded version and the slide to everybody.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'll move to the next question. I feel like this question is like long, so I'll be breaking it into little details for you, so able to answer one at a time. Hi, Namso, thank you for your time. You should do this regularly. It's going to be a huge help on a long run, getting in touch with the community. My question is, the first one is, what book did you read and what podcast do you listen to? What book do you read and what podcast do you listen to?
Okay. I feel like I'm probably one of the designers that doesn't read a lot of design books. But I do read lots of articles, I do read a lot of articles, just not books. And I also can listen to podcasts I don't know, I can't listen to podcasts without zoning off. I have a really shitty concentration. But yeah, I read articles, not books, and that could be maybe whatever I'm working on, or I just found something interesting that seems really interesting. And one place that I'll recommend for articles will be TopTal. They have a really nice blog, and most of their contents are always from a practical point of view. So it's not really theoretical where you just read for reading's sake. It's always something that you can read and immediately apply in your designs. So that's that. As for books, I'm sorry, I really can't help. One reading that I've been doing lately is mostly on business parts, mostly on business books. So yeah, so that's mostly what I read. I don't really read like a lot of design design books. I think I recently picked up one design book that Start published in partnership with Stripe, something internationalization, something like that. But yeah, I read lots of articles. I read articles more than I do with books.
Okay. So the next question is, did you have a role model in design or a mentor?
I didn't have a role model in design, but I have people that really inspired me, and they were mostly my colleagues. At every point in time, like either the way they were working, like either the way they work, the way they go about doing stuff. There are definitely people that I admire internationally, but I wouldn't still refer to them as role models. Those are people that I would say they've inspired me, that I've worked with as colleagues. That would be Nemi. Nemi, one thing I learned from Nemi is a pursuit of excellence. So at every point in time, she doesn't accept anything less than excellence, and that also reflects in the quality of her work. And there is David, Commissioner of Design. David inspired me in ways of he's constantly willing to explore, and he works really hard. So he's constantly willing to explore, constantly like trying to like pick up new stuff. And that's what makes him really fluid as a designer, and allowed him to master like various disciplines in design. So I've worked with people that I've picked up, really useful stuff from them, try to learn from them, try to like pick up stuff that they're doing that you think are interesting. It's also one way that you can refresh your career. So as you're learning, oftentimes you probably be focused on completing daily tasks, or like completing tasks. So you probably won't have that time where you just want to dedicate to, I want to learn new stuff, aside from working with people that inspire you to experiment these things. Or if you say, for example, want to work on design systems, find someone that likes design systems or does stuff related to design systems a lot, and see how they are going about it. That kind of makes you, and that kind of make you articulate towards that particular direction.
All right, thank you so much, Namso. I will just make this little announcement before you go. So if you want to ask your question, use the link sli.do and enter our code so you can attend to question. I may not be able to like probably track all the questions here and for proper documentation, because you lose all the question immediately after the session. So please drop your question on Slido. I will answer them. So the next question is from Daniel Adeo Toki. How do you approach building a design system as the lone designer in your company? Is you or company? So I don't know if you are the lone designer, but yeah.
No, it's been a lot of time since I was a lone designer. I can share a link after this. I'll probably share it on my Twitter page, that could get you started, but not with design systems per se. But it will get you to that point where you can start putting together your design system in bits. But the first thing is probably from having components that are well defined. And being the lone designer also has its advantage, because you're in total control of everything. You can't mess things up. And the downside is probably that you really can't learn from anybody but yourself. So, and then you have to fight a lot for that to be maintained, or for them to give you some time to kind of put it together. But yeah, I can share something. So you can probably start from design ops. So not like really complicated design ops where you have to like define how you want people to do your teams or any of that. It could just be from how you want to document. You could set that, how you want to name your design files, your design pages, your components, how you're naming stuff in Figma. All of that will be useful when you eventually get your design system to a stage where you can maybe refer to it. And you also don't need to start from a design system. You can probably start from, like I said, components. So building out like a component library. You can just start small. You don't have to like build components in advance. So maybe if you are working on the home page today, you can create components related to the home page. Maybe create buttons. You always use buttons. The more you advance, the easier it gets because you would have created some elements that you are now just reusing as you go. So it's always starting small. Don't intend to go for a design system. Maybe try to aim for, you want to have consistency in your designs, right? That makes you pay so much attention to how each element is created, how you want each element to be used. Then maybe you can now move from there to, having a clear hierarchy of your elements and how each element is arranged. Probably move on to and what's this new feature that the Figma released? Something to do with is it prototypes? But you can prototype some elements and just be using that in your prototype. So prototype them in
I think
advance
change
and then
also.
sorry?
Change. When you can change, when you have different variant of stuff and you can change it. I think that's a
No,
new Figma. Okay.
no. I think it's interactive components. Yeah,
Yeah.
interactive components. Yeah. So you can maybe have like interactive components that
Okay.
you are creating, and then that makes it easier for you to prototype. Yeah, thank you so much, Ife. That you can prototype or speed up your prototyping flow. So just having all of that makes it easier for you to have like a component library which you can maybe scale it up as much as you want. But yeah, start small, start from things that might seem too basic, like consistency or a naming convention that works for you, having all of your components in one place, deciding on how you want to be adding new designs to your file so that if somebody else joins your team, they're able to follow what you've been working on. Do you want the first page to stay on top, or do you want to be adding pages, from the bottom up, like how you want to arrange that? Start by naming layers, just keeping everything orderly. And assume that you are not the only one again at that point in time because you want it to be self-understood by whoever joins or when you are explaining to people. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, so there's a question here from Blessing, but the question is, please, can you share some free resources that we can study and learn from? Okay, before I allow Namso to answer that, so you can check our website, bits.ly/design only things. You get a lot of free resources to learn from and study from. But I would like Namso to answer if there's any recommendation you want to give to her, free resources that can help us study and learn.
So I think I'll go with your learning and resources. One design resource that I normally share with whoever is trying to get into design is the learn design curriculum that Figma put together. I think it was designed to allow people that are coming from a non-technical background to easily scale up. Another one which I'll share is it's not really like a learning resource, but it's more like a place where you can go to and see inspiring stuff that you can create. So that is Pinterest, right? So you can go on Pinterest and see lots of inspiring stuff that you might want to attempt to recreate or experiment with design challenges. I've forgotten this. There's a site that you can use to get design challenges, the daily design challenges. I'll probably still share that again on my Twitter page. Yeah.
Okay. I want to. Okay, sorry about that. So there's another question here from Prince Miracle Onesimus. So I think this should be our last question. So the question is, how do you articulate your design decision and what's your best practices?
How do I articulate my design decisions? That's a tough one because there's really no like formula. Um, but one approach is one that still ties me back um, to the period or whatever I'm working on. Um, One thing I like to take into consideration at every point in time is that I'm probably the only one advocating for the user at every point in time during the product development process. So from when we are breaking down priorities, I'll probably be the only one advocating. Um, I also I also try to base most of my decisions um, on one, finding that balance between what you're trying to achieve business wise, and secondly, finding that balance between making sure that whoever is going to be using that particular product or feature is able to complete whatever action that they will be required to do. That also means sometimes I'm able to fully understand what we need to achieve. Other times, it's probably just me following, that balance, trying to have that balance, and then it works out. Um, but one way, like either way, one approach that I've also seen helpful is is the how do I put this? Is like when you're working with someone and then you try to see if they're thinking what you're thinking, but you're not explaining what you want to say to them. So that collaborative process where um, I try to see if am I the only one thinking this, and then if someone or if whoever I'm working with kind of suggests anything similar to what I was thinking, then that kind of um, gives me that extra reassurance that I'm kind of making the right decision. Other times could just, if it's more like me working alone, it's probably just come down to, me looking at other platforms, what's going on, what are they doing. That allows me to adjust the way I'm thinking about that particular problem, and also offers some more guidance to my design decisions. Every other thing, every other thing is mostly just trying to have that balance between what we want to achieve, company wise, and what we want people to do with that particular maybe feature or whatever they're trying to achieve. So another way that I quickly test out some of my design decisions is prototyping. I do like a lot of prototyping. Um, like oftentimes might just be wireframes, but I try to like test them as much as possible. I also started including having like different versions. So every time I'm to work on something, I always try to make sure that I don't just go with the very first solution that I came up with. So I do the first one, I try working on maybe like a second version. And the goal is always to make the second version as widely different from the first version as possible, so that I'm not copying ideas from the first version to the second one, which would really defeat the purpose of having, widely different samples. So all of that kind of allows me to work out my design decisions, helps me, test them quickly, and then know if I'm making like the right decision or not, and also helps me um, leverage off of whatever insights, understanding that whoever I'm collaborating on that project with might be having, kind of also find like a middle ground, like, am I thinking really crazy about this stuff, or this is kind of normal? So you should see how to maybe expand on this some more. So all that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. That'll be all for today. Actually, we have other questions, but I don't think we have the time.
So you can answer that on Twitter, or maybe later on as replies in the YouTube comments.
Okay, yeah. So I will forward the questions to you. Give us answer. We attach it to email that we'll be sending out, and then we put it on Twitter as well. can follow Design Only Things on Twitter. Namnso, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Ukpanah.
Thank you. So you can follow him on Twitter as well. So that will be all for today. And thank you so much, Namnso, for giving us time out of your busy schedule to teach us from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much. And so
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, so I want to say this again, please. This webinar is not just going to be the only one that we are having. We are going to set up more webinars on design, any topic around design only things, and we'll bring you top designers from the industry, people like Namnso, to teach us and give us the up of their knowledge, and then we can learn so much. So to stay afloat of all the information that has to do with our webinars and our design resources and tips, you can follow us on our social media. Follow us on Instagram, Design Only Things, Twitter, Design Only Things, LinkedIn, Design Only Things, and you can follow our YouTube channel too. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Design Only Things, and you can go to our website for your for carefully created resources. Is on the chat. We have bit.ly/design only things. We post design tips daily, every day, on trends in the industry to help you design better. And also on our website, you can see a button for you to give your feedback or anything that you think we are missing out on the website as well. And you can buy us a cup of coffee to keep the design block away. The donate link is on the website as well. And please endeavor to follow Namnso Ukpanah, our guest today, to get design tips. I'm following him, and it's really nice following him. Apart from the fact that he gives us feeds from his life, generally.
But don't tweet nothing.
You retweet information that are very helpful, like Figma config and other stuff. So I believe you will find it very, very helpful. So thank you so much for today. You can drop your feedback for the session. You see the chat, the form on the chat. I'll post it again so that we can check it out. You can post your feedback, and we'll also be sending it to our email. The recorded session, the slide will be sent to our email, and the link to our social media and the link to Namnso's social media as well, so that you can follow us. Thank you so much. It's been a nice time talking to you. Bye.
That's all, everyone.
Thank you.